Hi, today we are going to discuss another topic in access gateway, which is called identity injection. Identity injection is a property of access gateway. Through using that, access gateway can achieve, or NAM can achieve, single sign-on with the web server. Single sign-on means once you authenticate with IDP, you need not to authenticate again when you are accessing the different web server which are behind NAM. So single sign-on is like whenever you if you access a web server, the web server can ask you to fill some form to some login form to log into the web server, or it can send you a 401 authorization header where you can pass your username and password. This information which will go as an authorization header to the web server, and web server can do a calculate or check this against their own database and find out whether this user is authenticated or not. So but when you are using NAM, you access a protected resource, you already authenticate yourself with the identity server. So if web server will again ask for username and password, and user has to again uh, put this information, uh, it, it shows that it's not single sign-on is not achieved. Hi all, today I'm going to cover another topic in access gateway, which is called identity injection. Now, why identity injection is required in NAM? So whenever you access any uh, web server can ask you for uh, authenticate yourself. So you can say if you access some website, it can ask you to input the username and password. They can send you a form and you have to put your username and password. When you post that data to the web server authenticate that data and identify that it's a valid user. Or other than that, website can also provide you a 401 authorization header to pass your username or password information to the web server. Other than that, also the web server also time to time needs some information from the information related to the user. So these things can be achieved in NAM using identity injection. The main goal to use identity injection is single sign-on. Single sign-on means if you are using NAM and you authenticate yourself with IDP, you need not to authenticate again when you access backend web server. This is achieved using identity injection. Uh, to achieve single sign-on using identity injection, this is applicable to the web server which asks for a 401 authorization header. And also identity injection can be used to pass LDAP information about user to the web server. How it pass this information, that we will see in this session. And if you see any identity injection policy, you can see the different form through which this information can be forms which you can use to pass the information to the web server. Either you can pass the information in terms of query string, or you can make an authorization header or custom header and send this information to the web server. So what we are going to do in this session, we will uh, if you remember in the previous session with authorization policy, we have created one role policy and one user under session underscore user one, which authenticates itself with IDP, and then IDP assigns a role called session user, and that role is used in the authorization header to permit and or deny access to the user. So we will extend the same example, and what we will do, we will use the session underscore use session user role to allow the user in the authorization policy. We will make it to allow to access the web server, and then we will create an identity injection policy to inject different information to the web server. So for this, I will go to admin console. Okay. So we'll go to access gateway, edit, session reverse proxy 1, session proxy service, and here we will change the authorization policy, because in the previous policy we have made a rule for deny. We will change it to permit. Changes. We will create a policy. To create an identity policy, identity injection policy, you have to come here, click to none, manage policy, new. Here you have to select identity injection. I have given this name to this policy. Okay. So identity injection policy, here you can see identity injection policy does not have any condition. It has only action. So the action, what all actions are there, you can see: inject into authentication header, inject into custom header, inject into custom header with tags, inject into cookie header, inject into query string, inject cargo. So there are the different ways you can inject information to the web server. We will take inject into authentication header and inject into custom header to send information here in this example. So what we'll do, this in this authentication header, we will take the credential profile. So for username, we are going to pass the LDAP credential username, and for the password, we will again take the credential profile and pass here password. We'll also send information about the custom header. So you can see there is an AND game here. So it will send this information plus a custom header. For the custom header, will session user role, the value, we'll take the roles, and we will select the same role which is passed by the identity provider. Okay. So identity injection policy, if you go inside that, you can see there are different fields to take and send to the web server. We can follow the documentation for this section. Documentation provide very detailed information about each and every uh, details of the attribute which you can use to send to the web server. Now we have created this session user identification identity injection, sorry, user identity injection policy, and here we are sending authentication header plus custom header. So let's see what happens. Now as we have done this changes, you can see identity injection is not visible, so we have to enable this. Okay, now as we have done changes with the access gateway, we need to update the access gateway. Okay, access gateway is green. What about identity server? This is also green. Good. Now we are going to access the protected resource. The same URL we will use because we are using the same protected resource. Again, something 12.lab.null.com session info.php. Now info.php, as I told in the previous session, that info.php basically show you all the HTTP requests which is made to the web server. So here we can see that whether actually we are injecting some data to the web server or not. Okay, it's redirected to IDP. Use the same user, session user1, password, and login. Okay, so here you can see that there are multiple headers are dumped here. We need to find the header which we are interested in. Okay, so you can see we have added one custom header, session user role, and we have selected the current roles. So as we have authenticated user session underscore user1 and IDP has assigned role session user, you can see using identity injection AG has injected this role information to the web server. And also I said that by default there is a by default authenticated policy role is always assigned, so you can see this also. Other than that, you can see there is authorization header which is basic, and it is the same which we have injected using authentication header in identity injection policy. So identity injection policy, as I told before, that it is used to achieve the single sign-on. If your web server is looking for 401 authorization, then you can use identity injection. There is another way to achieve single sign-on is using form fill policy. We will take that in coming sessions. But identity injection is very important. You can use identity injection to inject any kind of information which web servers are required. Thanks.